The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
Welcome back. President Trump followed up that threat to North Korea with an executive order today imposing stricter sanctions against the country, essentially banning anyone who does business with North Korea from doing business with the United States. More on that in just a moment. Trump made this announcement during a meeting with leaders of the countries most threatened by North Korea. That would be South Korea and Japan, two of our strongest allies. The conversation today shifted slightly away from military options, where it's been for weeks, with Trump leaving the door open at least to a diplomatic resolution.
Is dialogue still possible with North Korea? Is dialogue still possible?
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Also today, North Korean President Kim Jong-un issued a direct response to Trump's fiery address at the UN this week. Get comfortable for this one. In a statement to the Korean state news agency, he said all this, quote, "I am now thinking hard about what response he could have expected when he allowed such eccentric words to trip off his tongue. Whatever Trump might have expected, he will face results beyond his expectation. I will surely and definitely tame the mentally deranged U.S. dotard with fire." What beyond his expectation means, we cannot be sure, but the North Korean foreign minister, who's here in New York for the General Assembly, warned the South Korean press corps tonight this, quote, "It could be the most powerful detonation of an H-bomb in the Pacific." Could be, he said. With us here tonight, Andrea Mitchell, our chief foreign affairs correspondent, who's been covering this topic and this region for a long time. And Joe Cirincione, Cirincione. This is tough. It's always, I know it's late. Joe Cirincione, author of 3 relevant books for our conversation. Nuclear Nightmares, Securing the World Before It's Too Late. Bomb Scare, The History and Future of Nuclear Weapons, and Deadly Arsenals, Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Threats. He's also a veteran of the House Armed Services Committee staff and teaches at Georgetown University, where they have to get his name right at the completion of the term. For the record, dotard was the most searched for term of the night on Webster's, and it means old or senile, or in my case, unable to get Cirincione right. So, Andrea, we'll start with you. A day of bellicosity, a day of real sanctions. Where does this thing stand as of tonight?
Well, sort of good news and bad news, and I'm not going to even attempt Joe's last name, but just his book covers are enough to scare the heck out of you.
I know, and we've known him for years.
Yes. So let's talk first about perhaps the positive side. The president acknowledging that there is still room for dialogue or diplomacy, and this in answer to a reporter's question, and also successful sanction announcements. I mean, whether they are carried out, whether there is cheating, remains to be seen. But someone as smart as John McLaughlin, the former deputy CIA director, whom you know well, was saying to me earlier today that this is real, this will bite, because this is China's central bank agreeing to basically go along with the system that the Obama Treasury used to get Iran to the bargaining table, which was to use the banking, the international banking system known as the SWIFT system,
so it does
against
work.
the rogue state. It basically means, if I can paraphrase Steve Mnuchin at a briefing today, you can either decide, if you're a nation or a bank, whether you want to trade in dollars or deal with the U.S. or deal with Pyongyang's currency in Pyongyang. You can't do both. So if you want to deal in the world economy, which China does, which Russia presumably does, you can't also deal with Pyongyang. This would, if effectively monitored, actually cut off the flow of resources to North Korea and cripple eventually its a very expensive military system. That said, there's been a lot of cheating before.
Joe, all this military talk back and forth reaches this kind of fever dream crescendo, and it's hard to walk back from that. So did you welcome the talk of diplomacy? Did you welcome these new sanctions?
It's a thin ray of hope, the president's two-word statement when asked if it's still possible to talk to North Korea. He said, why not? Remember, their strategy is maximum pressure and engagement. Okay, you've got the maximum pressure, a very bellicose, I'm going to say reckless speech at the UN, now some serious new sanctions, great. But if your strategy is sanctions, you don't have a strategy. These are a stick. This is a pressure point. Where are the talks? Where's the engagement? If you were going to start talking with North Korea, now would be a good time because the rhetoric is ratcheting up. Kim's statement today was probably the most serious, coldly sober statement that he's given. It's personal. He never does that. It was written with a to the President of the United States. If Donald Trump thought that he had solved this problem with a tough speech and some tough sanctions, you see them slapping high fives and spiking footballs, this game ain't over. It's just beginning, and it could get ugly very quickly.